All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. After waiting so long to drink the milk at the brickyard, Josef Newgarden is now making a habit of it. Newgarden began today's weather delayed Indianapolis 500 in third place as he was looking to become the first driver since Helio Castroneves all the way back in 2002 to win at Indy in consecutive years. It was a strong start today for teams Penske with Scott McLaughlin, Will Power, and Newgarden first, second, and third, respectively, to begin this race. We saw Will Power taper off from that pack early, and then eventually we saw the veteran driver crash out of this race. But at the end of the day, this race was defined and is going to be remembered first by the battle between Newgarden, Pato Award, Alexander Rossi, and Scott Dixon late for the top spot. And then the battle over the last two laps between Newgarden and Pato O'Ward was one for the ages. And honestly, you can make it really like the last 5 or 6 laps or so. It was just a battle for the ages, okay? For the second consecutive year, we saw Newgarden overtake a driver in the waning stages. Last year, it was Marcus Ericsson. This time, it was Pato O'Ward. And this was a strong bounce back for Newgarden and Penske after the controversy to begin this season. Of course, Newgarden disqualified, in St. Tampa St. Pete for the first race of the year. He's been doing it, and had to do it again today without Tim Cindric, who is serving his suspension. But nonetheless, Newgarden went out there and ran a great race, and that is why he took home the checkered flag at Indy for the second consecutive year. You think about it, Newgarden has now put his name in the record books as only 20 drivers have been able to say that they've won this race multiple times. And this was the 109th running of the Indianapolis 500, while he is now just one of 6 drivers to who can say they've gone back to back at the Brickyard. This is also the 20th time that a Roger Penske owned car was in the winner's circle in Indianapolis. Okay. Uh, on the flip side of this, more Indianapolis heartbreak for Pato Award. I mean, how close can a driver get? We saw him crash out late last year when he was making a move to try to get to first place, and we saw him take second back in 2022. You could see it, you could feel it. Okay, the emotion from this young man as he was so close yet so far. And we saw that emotion, pour over. He had his head down afterwards, and it's one of those you feel for him because he, like all of the other drivers and all the other teams, put so much into this moment. Okay, and Indy is just like anything else where guys compete and gals. Okay, the line between winning and losing is great. Okay, and you work so hard, you put so much into it, you feel like you have everything there in order to win, and it just eluded you. Okay, and it's the gap between winning. I know some people say he took second place, but Pato Award felt like he had a first place car, and unfortunately he finished second. But I will say this: um, this young man, it's not going to be that much longer before he's a series champion in IndyCar, and it's not going to be that much longer before he takes home the checkered flag at Indianapolis. That's how good he is. That's how talented he is, and McLaren continues to give him a very good car. Speaking of McLaren, we saw Alexander Rossi take fourth place today, and Rossi looked like late he was going to have an opportunity to win as he was switching back and forth with Newgarden. But I said it when it happened. Rossi pitted with about 29 laps left in this race. Newgarden came in with about 27. Award was like in that same window as well. And I just wondered, okay, what if it was a caution, would it have hurt him? And also on top of that, with him coming in slightly earlier hinder him. And he was on that fuel save late. And honestly, I really do think that hurt Rossi at the end of the day. He's won this race before. He finished top five last year as well. And he, like a Ward, you're getting close, you're chipping away, but you don't want to hear that. You want to be in that winner's circle in Gasoline Alley. I totally understand it. For Scott McLaughlin, okay, he was on the pole to begin this race. He led nearly 60 laps. And early on, he looked like he had a very strong car. Took sixth. For a lot of people, they'd be happy with that. But if you had the strong car that he had coming into this race, you led the amount of laps that he did during this race, you want to win. And unfortunately, he came up short, but still, it's another top 10 finish for him. A very strong showing for Kyle Larson today, who took 18th, but he had absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Talking about the NASCAR driver who was looking to do the double. Last I checked, he was on his way to Charlotte. He's probably there by now. He's not going to be able to race the full Coca-Cola 600 due to the weather delay in Indy. But you know what? He had an opportunity to back out of this race early before it started because of the weather delay. And he said, you know what? No, he owes it to the people there because a lot of people put a lot of work into that car. He qualified fifth, was racing good, and even led some laps, okay, late in this race. But it just came down to that drive-through penalty for locking up heading into the pit lanes, and that's something that will come with time as far as racing in Indy cars. And I got a feeling that he's going to be back next year. The competitor in him, I think, is going to bring him back to Indy and give him another opportunity to try to go out there and win this race. For Scott Dixon and Alex Palou, and I talked about this leading up to this race. They weren't in the top 10 to begin this day. Scott Dixon was in row seven. Alex Palou was in row five. But I said, you know what? Watch out for these vet drivers because you know what? These guys know how to navigate their way through the field. And both of them had an opportunity late, especially Scott Dixon. But it was just the fact that Newgarden, O'Ward, and Rossi was stronger than him. But credit to Dixon for still being able to come back and hold off Rossi for third place. And this is after Dixon again finished this race or began this race rather on row number seven. For Palou, it's the same old song. You think, okay, he might be at 14th or 15th at some point in the race. And before you blink, it's another top five for Alex Palou. And that's once again what we saw today. And this is a reason why he's won the IndyCar championship in two of the last 3 years. And this is another reason why he is leading the standings once again. Getting back to Scott Dixon, questionable no call, okay, by race control on not penalizing him for the contact with Ryan Hunter Ray. It was borderline, but race control felt like Dixon didn't do anything wrong. So when it was all said and done, it's another top five for the Iceman. A tough break for Marcus Ericsson. And you think about it, he was a late qualifier due to the wreck on his primary car, started this race 32 early on in this race, getting caught up in the wreck with Pietro Fittipaldi and Tom Bloomquist. And I say this because Marcus Ericsson was as close as you can be last year to winning back to back at Indy. And of course, getting that $440,000 bonus that we saw Newgarden get today. And, being so close last year and just getting bumped out early. It's kind of like you watching a college basketball team make a run, win the championship in the NCAA tournament, get to the championship game, and then the following year they come back and get bumped out in the first round. They get upset. And that's basically what happened to Marcus Ericsson today. For Newgarden, he's back in the top 10 now after losing those points to begin the season. And that's big for him. Newgarden currently right now is seventh. And we've still got plenty of IndyCar season left in front of us. So I think, Joseph Newgarden, he's back as far as in the top 10, and he's going to give it, a strong go at this thing. But you look at it, Kyle Kirkwood, strong performance today as he finished seventh. Santino Ferrucci, who finished third last year in this race, he was hovering around the top 10 all day. and he went out there and he finished eighth today. A strong showing from Renus VK, who finished ninth. Former winners such as Takuma Sato took 14th. I talked about Kyle Larson. Helio Castroneves finishing 20th as well. We saw Colton Herter, a guy who had a strong car early, crash out as well. I talked about it. The cautions are so unpredictable at Indy, and that was once again the case this year. But you look at it overall right now, this is going to be a tight race. I know that Alex Below widened his gap over Will Power in the standings due to the fact that Power did had a DNF, but now Scott Dixon, his Chip Ganassi teammate, has moved up to two. But then you've got Power right there, you've got Award, you've got Herta, and then you got the Penske drivers right there, McLaughlin as well as Newgarden, and then Rossi is eighth. So heading into Detroit for next Sunday, I think business is about to pick up now as we're about to get into the summer months, the meat and potatoes, if you will, of this IndyCar season. But what a tremendous finish this afternoon, and what a tremendous run by Josef Newgarden. I think his experience over that of Pato Award, in my opinion, was the difference late. Yes, it was heartbreak for Award, and I think his day is going to be coming at the Brickyards sooner rather than later. But nonetheless, to the victor goes the spoils, as after being, around the block for some time himself, now Joseph Newgarden is making a habit of kissing the bricks at Indy. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.